Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the ADDERTalks podcast, a podcast brought to you by Adder Technology. And in this first episode, myself and my colleague Rachel covered the grand opening of Adder's Customer Experience Centre. We went into some design elements of the space and also some tech inside the space as well. We then talked about Adder's recent transition to employee ownership and how the Customer Experience Centre really embodies that move. We hope you enjoy. 3, 2, 1. Why are we so bad at clapping? Okay, let's go. Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of ADDERTalks. I am your host, Ed Redman. I work in the marketing team. The person joining me today is my colleague and fellow marketeer, Rachel. Rachel, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am good. I'm really excited to be here. This has been a long time coming. And yeah, I'm just buzzing to get into this. So today we're talking about the latest announcement from Adder, the launch of the Adder Customer Experience Centre, which you were heavily involved in with the project. Can you talk to me about the CXC in general, why it's been brought to life, what it is, who it serves, all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. So if we just start with where it is based, the Customer Experience Centre, or also known as the CXC, is based here centrally in our global headquarters. Our global headquarters is actually in the UK. So this is a dedicated space for our customers, partners and people to come together to collaborate and really experience our own technology and see how it works, and also see it in scenarios that are familiar to other people as well.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned it's in the UK. Adder obviously operate as well on a very busy event schedule. You know, we go to all sorts of places from Singapore to Vegas to Barcelona. We will still be doing that. Could you go into a bit of why we've brought this to the UK as sort of a base for its purpose of showing our KVM?
Sure. So our event calendar is very busy, but we are kind of dictated by when those events are. So what the CXE or Customer Experience Centre does offer us is the opportunity to connect with partners and customers at any time that they need to. So we're not tied to an event calendar anymore, and we're able to host those sessions, whether it's remotely or in person, at any time that's required.
Yeah, makes total sense. So that's a little bit about why the CXC has been brought to life. You were involved quite heavily in the design aspect for the CXC. Could you go into a little bit of detail on some of the design elements that were chosen?
Sure. So when we started designing the Customer Experience Centre, we took influence and inspiration from our own crest that is so unique to us. So we were inspired by that, and there are lots of different traits in the space which are suggestive of our own crest, whether that's through the acoustic panelling or the statement lighting. And then also we looked at the functionality and how people would like to use this area, and also the comfort of the visitor. So there are things that we had to consider about, like the air conditioning and the fresh air system to the operator area, and understanding what kind of desks they might expect in that area and the seating, as well as taking signals from industrial like environments where we took influence as well. Yeah,
no, cool. I think ergonomics of the user is clearly paramount in this area.
Yeah, definitely.
But also the space looks amazing. I'm probably a little bit biased, but I think you and the team did an amazing job on designing the space.
Thanks.
So that's some of the design elements. What about sort of, I know that this space can be used in a variety of ways. So from looking like an air traffic control centre to a utilities control centre, you know, was it important during the configuration to be able to represent all of these applications and environments in this space?
Yeah, definitely. So we looked at our key industries, and then we opted to create environments that were familiar to the people from those areas. So the idea is that we worked with experts that we have internally who are really familiar with those spaces to bring in design language and technology that relates specifically. So we have things like a video wall and side screens and side panels, as well as large format displays to bring in, that touchscreen element and have intuitive and responsive kind of displays. We also have things at the operator level on the console, so control surfaces where if you're sat there, you can control what's going on around you. We have a huddle space, which is where we are currently, and we're able to, come here and have like an impromptu meeting or a podcast like we are today.
Yep.
So the idea is we've really tried to look at how people will respond and how they'll use the area, and then created a space like that.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's amazing as an area to display our technology, but also you just mentioned, which I actually hadn't mentioned, that we are filming this podcast from the CXC. So from a content creation outlook as well, it's an amazing space and it's going to get so much usage. Okay, so thanks for going into that. This was ADDER's latest announcement, but if we just go back a couple more months to the employee ownership announcement, could you just expand on that a little bit and maybe what the CXC means in terms of employee ownership and that transition? For
sure. So the Customer Experience Centre was first and foremost designed by employees. The idea being that we took expert insight from our own people to create an area that was really usable and adaptable. We spoke to the people who knew the specific environments that our own customers and partners are familiar with to create something that really resembles that. At the same time, when it came to the internal launch, we did the internal launch before we externally launched so that our own people were able to experience the Customer Experience Centre as our own customers, if you like. So they were all invited in, whether it was remotely or in person, and they were able to really see the space and understand how it all came together. Since then, we've had dedicated sessions to show people how to use the space and make sure people are trained and able to respond to how they need it to really adapt for them. So it's been an interesting process. We've really involved our employees throughout every step of the journey, and I think that's definitely something that we're going to continue to do.
Yeah, I think you touched on it a little bit there, but the fact that this space is based in the global headquarters where we have our production and engineering of products as well as our distribution of global products from this headquarters. I think it's amazing that any employee could come in here and have a look at some of the KVM in situ, because where software engineers work on the software side and the hardware side, maybe they don't necessarily get to see what it's doing in real time. So I think this is an amazing space and it can really represent some of the hard work that goes on here. Okay, that's great. I think maybe we'll start wrapping things up with some quick fire questions. How does that sound?
Yeah, good. Let's go.
Okay, let's go. So question number 1, and you only have one word to answer to make it a little bit more fun.
Okay.
What is your favourite design element of the CXC?
Acoustics.
Okay. Very good. I would have to agree with you. I think it represents the brand really well. Question number 2. Let's go with, what is your favourite piece of tech in this space?
Displays.
Oh, okay. Nice. Okay. And then the last question, and an important question, I think. We obviously launched this internally, as you mentioned, and then externally to the public.
Yep.
What was your favourite aspect of the internal launch and your favourite aspect of the external launch?
Internally, I would say people, and externally, I would say reaction.
Yeah, I think I would have to second that. I think the general vibe when we had the internal event, when we had all of the collapsible doors pushed back and the space was open and it was sort of a really nice hosting area and everyone was really interested in the tech, that was actually a really nice moment. And then I completely agree. The reaction we've had from the public and people that have been into the space so far has been amazing, and I'm sure it's very rewarding for you.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a good experience.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, that is a bit on the CXC as our first ever episode of ADDERTalks. Consider the CXC introduced. And thanks a lot, Rachel, for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So, that was the introduction to ADDER's brand new Customer Experience Centre and a little bit on the transition to employee ownership as well. We do hope you enjoyed this first edition, and to get involved with the CXC, make sure to check out some of the links below. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.